At 6:43, it's time for Headline Makers today, and we're joined by our senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall. Good to see you both this morning.
Good morning.
Let's kick off with this. We just teased it before the break, Claire. This blast in the Seychelles.
Yeah.
What's going on?
It's pretty awful. It's an explosives plant which has exploded. And the problem is, at the moment, the Seychelles is going through a really rainy season. So they've had immense amounts of rain, they've had landslips. So what it's done is inundated the emergency services. The President has called a state of emergency. They can't get people into the affected places. And if you look at the kind of footage, the blast is enormous, the radius that it has taken out, it's just unbelievable, the amount of debris that is around, adding to that the bad weather and the landslips, and you've got some really tough conditions, and nobody can really get out there to help. So you've got locals digging out as much as they can. I think
Anyone died in this?
The latest tally are 3 people who have died, sadly. But they're not to do with the blast, they're to do with all of the landslips. So you're not quite sure if the blast has made the landslips worse or not. The information coming out is a little bit sketchy on that one at the moment. But such a beautiful island, and everybody thinks, so they must be very well off. It isn't. There's an awful lot of poverty in the island of the Seychelles. The building quality isn't great. Given where they are, it's very difficult to get help in.
Yes,
so
you can see how roofs have caved in from, you know, all around, because the blast itself must have been incredible impact.
It was felt throughout the entire island.
It reminds,
it
reminds me of, I mean, another explosives factory that exploded a while ago. I'm just trying to think where it was, somewhere in...
There was, wasn't there?
Yeah, can you remember? It was an enormous explosives... container or a sort of factory that made explosives, I think. It was somewhere in... So it was somewhere in the Middle East.
Yes,
I think
yes,
that's right, yeah. I mean, this particular one is like sort of a perfect storm, isn't it? You first of all got the rain causes the landslides, then you've got an explosion. If you've got a state of emergency declared, you're dealing, in a sense, with 2 emergencies at the same time.
It wouldn't be bad enough if there hadn't been the rain.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the Telegraph, Nigel, should we? And all the problems facing the government at the moment over Rwanda.
It's almost like an implosion.
It is like an implosion. I think the Tory party have been imploding broadly since Brexit. That's not to blame Brexit, that's just to actually make an observation that they've been infighting really since, well, Theresa May's day. And we've had, what, 4 prime ministers in 4 years, and now there's talk about having a 5th. So the Tory chairman, Rick Holden, is saying, look, it would be absolute insanity to oust Rishi Sunak now, in which case, then, the way the Tory party are behaving, it's quite possible it'll happen. Actually, I don't think it will. I think that that even the Tories realise that we're getting so close to an election, what you can't do is have yet another leadership challenge and yet another prime minister.
Well, that would be nonsense. I mean, it would be pantomime.
It would be completely. You're absolutely right.
You'd have to trigger an immediate election, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, the first thing would be, we do know that letters of no confidence are going in on Rishi Sunak. The estimates vary. I mean, I heard last night 30 letters may have gone in.
That's a lot.
And what you need is 53 to actually trigger the no confidence vote. I think it's unlikely, even if you got to the 53, I think it's pretty unlikely that the no-confidence vote would go against Rishi Sunak. As you say, it would be nonsensical. It would be like a pantomime.
I mean, in that case, wouldn't it be absolutely justifiable for Keir Starmer to say they call for a vote of no confidence in the government? I mean, for heaven's sake, how many prime ministers can they go through without it looking as though this country is being misled?
Yeah, I mean, Keir Starmer could always do that, but I think that it's really in the hands of the Tory MPs, because obviously, if you had just a vote of no confidence in the government, all the Tories might club together.
Well, they would.
A vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister and the leader of the party is a slightly different situation.
Claire?
I just want to put my head in my hands. Here we are again a year later, and we're having a conversation about potentially removing the leader of the party, who happens to be the Prime Minister. I just fail to understand what people think it will achieve, because seemingly nobody leading the Conservative Party is acceptable to any side of the Conservative Party. That's where we've come to. You've got the different factions, about sort of 5 different disparate groups of individuals who believe they're right.
Is it therefore...
And never the twain shall meet.
When the party gets into this sort of state, is it therefore the right thing to do to have a change of government?
Speaking with my political hat on, no, I don't think so.
As a normal person,
we are going to have an election. Let's hold our hands up. We are going to have one. We've got until January of 2025. I think it'll be sooner than that.
Do you think it'll be sooner rather than later? I mean, this is such a mess. Surely they will. Surely they've got to call a general election.
I mean, I think
in spring.
The indications, all the indications are that they will. But obviously, I wear a different political hat from Claire. But all the indications are they're preparing for May. So the likely date would be May the 2nd, because that's the same date as local elections. Just combine the two. And everything that they're doing, and the idea about getting planes off to Rwanda by the spring is significant. The idea that the national insurance savings, that the cuts in national insurance will come in January, that gives you 3 months' pay packets before you get to election day.
How cynical is this?
Well, it is indeed, and probably the budget, it looks like the budget will come in March, so then you'll be going into the elections voting for the tax cuts that are promised in the budget. Yes, very cynical. Politics is awfully cynical.
So May 2nd, really?
Well, it would make sense, rather than have 2 elections, if you're doing it around springtime,
it'd be cheaper.
Rather than have 2 elections, you do it on one day. If you say, let the May the 2nd elections go ahead and have a general election sometime after that, you've got the situation of the Tories being knocked out in the local elections.
Oh, I see, yes, they don't.
And then you go into the next one, and they're all in the doldrums
so they
anyway.
might as well put all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Claire, do you think they will get a plane off to Rwanda by then?
No. No. I mean, I've been absolutely clear on this right from the start when it came up in April of 22. This isn't going to work. It was really obvious that it was going to be held up in the courts.
So why is Rishi putting all his faith
It's totemic. He has been handed this. It is almost that hill he wishes to die on. It has become the sort of the main part of the Conservative Party. It has been built up to be the be-all and end-all. It is the answer to everything, which it isn't. And unfortunately, he's been handed it. He promised and has stood there behind a lectern which says stop the boats, that he's promising to stop the boats. He needs to do something. This is something. He isn't going to let it go. He's not going to be the Prime Minister that failed to take it through.
But the problem with all that is, as an issue, we know that a majority of the British public are very concerned about all of this. And maybe they don't have faith in Rishi Sunak to do it. Maybe the planes will never take off, Nigel. But if Keir Starmer gets in, what's he going to do about it?
Well, I mean, Labour do actually have a policy on this, and what they would try and do is stop the boats in a different way. So one of the ideas...
Well, that's nicely.
Well, one of the ideas would be a settlement programme. We've got several going, things like for Afghans, for Ukrainians, for Syrians. The Afghan one doesn't work very well, which is why they're coming across on boats. But if you were able to take people, say, from refugee camps, there'd be no need for them to traipse over to Calais to try and get over the channel in a
they still would, though, wouldn't they?
So, well, hold on a minute. So the idea to stop illegal migration is just to invite them over anyway. Well, so therefore it's just classed as legal.
It's not quite an invite. You're not saying, oh, everyone come in. What you'd be doing is that the processing would be done somewhere else. I mean, that's like in a refugee camp. So it would be the same kind of rules that would apply. You can still have strict rules about who was able to come. What you're saying is there's no point going to Calais to go and do it.
But also, don't we have the other small issue of Sir Keir Starmer and his closer ties with Europe? Because if you are going to look at closer ties with Europe, you are going to be taking in some of those...
I hope you're not going to mention the 100,000 figure.
I'm not mentioning any figures whatsoever. You are going to look at taking in a portion of the refugee asylum seeker community from the EU.
That would depend on the deal that's done. I mean...
But he hasn't ruled it out. And I think this is your problem, is that the Labour Party haven't got any specific ideas. They're pointing at the government saying, well, you're terrible and you're wrong. they aren't coming up with something concrete. And
no, but they would replace. They would replace
Rwanda. The most cynical
Rwanda.
Labour supporter will look at it saying it's a little bit open borders for my liking.
Yeah, but I mean, what they would do is that they would use the money from Rwanda to try and get a special police unit to stop the smuggling gangs. I don't know that would work, but it might do. Yes, there might be a deal with Europe, and yes, we might have to take some European migrants. But there's this nonsense figure being put out there that we'd be forced to take 100,000 of them. I mean, that has got to be nonsense. That's only it's only a proposal anyway. It's only for EU member states. We're not in the EU, so we're not bound by it. But there may be some kind of deal.
But don't you also think it's a real dereliction of duty for somebody to suggest that you should have closer ties with the European Union when the nation did vote to leave? And I don't think that you can just ride roughshod. Well,
they're still our neighbours. We've still got to trade with them. We've still got to talk with them. We've got various ties to Europe.
He is talking about a much tighter connection with them and going back into slightly dodgy trading agreements which look a little bit like single market.
Well, they don't have to be dodgy. I mean, they could actually be a good trading agreement. It's possible.
But it's like
still going against. It's a tennis match here.
I was just thinking I'd love to be sat at your breakfast table.
Absolutely.
Actually, this is what it's like.
This is exactly what it's like.
You are sitting on our breakfast table.
Well,
Yeah, gosh, how
healthy
fascinating.
Healthy discussion, very good. Let's just finish off, should we, with Nigel, what's this new venomous species with the 8 legs and scalloped pincers discovered in California?
Yeah, well, if Claire was thinking of a Californian holiday next summer, we're not going.
No, I'm not either. Tell us more.
They discovered a new scorpion in California, and it's been able to survive in the desert. It's survived oil drilling. It's a very hardy species, and yes, it looks pretty revolting. There it is.
So it's got 8 legs and pincers.
Yes, that's right. Basically, it's a scorpion. The only good news, I suppose, if you call it good news, is its sting isn't too serious. So it would be a bit like a mild bee sting or pricking yourself with a cactus.
I wouldn't want to try it.
I'm going to.
No, I think we all agree on that one.
Oh, yeah? Check your shoes before you put them on.
Yeah.
Nigel, Claire, thank you very much indeed. Catch up with you a little bit later on. Time for a check on your weather this morning. Here's Alex.